Rally Armor mud flaps, one of my favorite installs on the R32. The day I recorded this, the audio came out bad, so I'm just going to have to go over it. But here you can see all the snow and stuff that's caught on the rally armors. This was about a week ago I took this video. And it keeps all that snow and stuff out of the crease right behind the fender there. Under the front fender. Here's the rear. They keep the car so much cleaner from the rain and just dirt and snow. Keeps all the front wheel spray off the doors. Here it is on another salty day. It wasn't that snowy. But this is just all salt from the roads on the edge of the mud flap. And so it's catching all that salt and water and pretty much keeping it off of the bottom and side of the car for the most part. There you go on the back. More salt. I went with the $15 universal plastic type mud flaps. I didn't buy the expensive urethane ones. And they're about 11.5 inches wide when you get them, which I thought was too wide. They don't really fit the wheel wells good, so I'm trimming them down. The top one is one I already trimmed. Here you can see how much I trimmed off of it. That piece was connected on that side like that. And now they're about 9.5 inches wide. And I mean, you're probably not going to have wheels wider than 9.5 inches. So if I do eventually get wider wheels, it'll still look okay. But I pretty much see these as disposable for $15. Especially now that I'm lowered, they're going to scrape a lot. I know Rally Armor makes specific kits for some cars, and I'm not sure how those mount. But these you can adjust to wherever you want because you're going to drill holes in them and mount them your own way. So the back was a little tougher because of the curve of the fender liner on the R32. It's a pretty deep curve. The fronts went on pretty easy. Here I'm just seeing how the trimmed mud flap fits in, seeing how it lines up and eyeballing it where I would want it. The other day I saw a Subaru that had the urethane ones, the expensive ones, and it was like a stock Subaru wagon and they were sticking out like way too far. He didn't trim them at all. It just looked horrible. Of course, everyone can do it their own way. I'll show you the measurements for mine, how far they stick out when I'm all done. I have pictures of that. But first thing you can do is take the wheel off. Take the center cap off, loosen the lug nuts, jack it up. All that basic stuff. All I had was the factory jack, so not using any special equipment. It's one of the easier projects I've done on the R32. I'll show you all the tools you're going to need. And I did put an extra bottle jack under it out of the GMC just in case the Volkswagen one failed. It's not holding the car up, and I'm not really going to be under the car, so. Here's all the tools I used, and on the front I used 2 factory screws that hold the side skirt together. I'll show you those right here. Those 2 screws. And then I only had to drill 1 hole into the fender liner and put a screw there. On the fender liner one, I used those expanding plastic screws that expand as you screw into it. And I did it a little different on the back. I'll show you that with different hardware. But you just take those factory screws out and then line up your Rally Armor flap. Mark the holes, drill the holes for those 2 screws. And then once you get those mounted and set where you like it, take your measurements and all that. And then you drill the hole for the fender screw that just goes into the plastic liner. And you could always silicone that hole when you take them off, so it's no big deal. Once I had it bolted in, the top was a little flappy there against the fender. So the way I took care of that was with some ultra black adhesive. And I just ran a bead of that along the top of the Rally Armor flap and then pressed it against the fender liner. It also makes it so no water and stuff can get down between the flap and your fender liner and all that good stuff. So this is how it looks before the mud flaps, and this is how it looks after. You can see I have the third hole drilled out, and if you look between the two arrows you can see a marker line, and I trim that line so that whole left top corner of the flap is gone because you don't really need it. So I trimmed the width down 2 inches originally and then did that trim modification to the whole corner. And here's how they look on the front once they're installed. I didn't clean the side skirts before these pictures, so you can see how much of a beating they were taking. There's the front driver's side, passenger side front, about 3/4 of an inch out. And there's a measurement for the top. Keep in mind, these are pre-coilover pictures, so I had about 6 inches of clearance under the side skirt, and I brought the flaps down about 3 inches, so there would be 3 inches clearance under them. But that's all changed now. If they scrape really bad, I'll get a new pair and mount them differently. But here you can see what they look like from the back under the car, with it on the ground. And now we'll start on the back mud flaps. On the back, I trimmed it a little differently. You can see the squiggly shape to it. That's because of the way the R32 fender liner is shaped. And at the top and on the middle left, I used the expanding plastic fasteners, the screw ones that expand after you screw them in. And then I used a metal fastener on the lower right by my pinky because I needed a longer fastener to reach the fender liner. And then I put a washer and a nut behind that. I also used the black adhesive on the back, that's why it's a little dirty on the lower left. But here you can see the measurement for the back. Again, pre-coilover pictures where there was 8 inches of clearance in the back, and I dropped the mud flaps down too, and I figured that would protect the rear bumper. And those pictures were before I got 4 new tires, so that's why they're a little bald. But you can see it sticks out about an inch from the wide part at the bumper. And it's pretty much even with the tires. They don't stick out obnoxiously far. And you can look down the side of the car and barely see the front ones. They're not sticking out far. So here it is all done. The rear mud flaps ended up meeting the bumper line at the top. You can see where the arrows point. So that came out pretty clean. Look at that wheel gap. That's fixed now, but that's the R32 Rally Armor mud flap install.